bread samar. Hi, my name is Carolina Gelen. I'm here at the NYT Studio Kitchen, and today we're gonna be making a really delicious cottage cheese bread. It's your typical sandwich bread with a boost of protein. It has a fluffy texture, and I'm sure you're gonna love it. So in the dough, we're gonna be using egg whites and cottage cheese instead of just water. They bring a really nice level of moisture to the bread, which gives us a tender crumb that stays fluffy throughout the week. I really think it belongs in this bread. It's not just one of those gimmicky thing where it's like, hey, you could add cottage cheese to this. Like, it brings a lot of moisture to the bread, and it gives us a consistency or a texture very similar to milk bread. It has that, like, just fluffiness is the best way I can describe it. So we're gonna start by mixing some lukewarm water with a little bit of yeast. Whenever it comes to using store-bought yeast, I like to buy mine in the little packets. I never buy mine in bulk because I find that I never use it all up in time. And 5 years later, when I'm finishing the jar, I find that the yeast is not quite as active anymore. You want the water to be lukewarm, not too hot, not too cold, because you want the yeast to dissolve in the water, but you don't want to shock it because it's too hot, because yeast is alive and hot water will kill it. So the next step is blending the cottage cheese and egg whites together. Ever since I developed this recipe, there's this new thing that you can buy store-bought cottage cheese that's already blended. So if you don't want to use a blender, you could totally use that instead. We're just gonna add the cottage cheese. The most beautiful sound you'll hear in the kitchen. So I'm just looking to break down the curds and have a really smooth mixture, and I think we're pretty much there. It'll have a consistency almost like heavy cream. Beautiful. And now we're just gonna whisk. We're not looking to incorporate any air in here. We're just looking for everything to be nice and combined. And the next step is adding the flour and salt to the wet ingredients. We're gonna stir this until we're left with a shaggy, sticky dough. But I don't want you to be afraid of sticky doughs. Usually when we have to work with a sticky dough, I feel like we tend to add more flour just to make it not sticky. But I wanna show you just how approachable it can be kneading a sticky dough. And sometimes the secret is just allowing the flour to hydrate. So if it feels really sticky to the touch, you can always just give it 5 minutes to the side and then proceed to knead. So we're gonna dust our work surface with a little bit of flour to begin with, and just bring the dough onto our work surface. And one thing I like to do for the first knead is oil my hands just a little bit, just to prevent the dough from sticking. You're looking to pull the dough towards you. So just push and then pull back. Push, pull back. Push and pull back. And if you feel like the dough again starts sticking to your hands, just add a tiny bit more oil. And you'll notice that as you knead, it's gonna become less and less sticky. So just push and pull back. Push, pull back. Push and pull back. And if you really don't feel like getting your hands sticky, you can absolutely add this to a stand mixer with the dough hook attachment and let that do the work for you. But as you can see, I've only done this for about a minute, and the dough is already feeling smoother, tighter, and easier to work with. A very helpful tool to have on hand is a bench scraper. It really helps bring the dough together, especially if it starts sticking to our work surface. I feel like that's a really good tell when you're kneading a ball of dough is when your hands start to become clean and there's no pieces of dough that are sticking to your hand. And as you can see, the more you knead, the smoother it gets. I would say it roughly needs about 5 to 6 minutes of kneading by hand. It might need a little less in a stand mixer, but there's our beautiful ball of dough. All right, so next up, we're gonna be shaping this ball of dough into a better ball. And what I mean by that is flatten the dough and then bring the corners towards the center. And this creates tension, which is gonna trap a lot of the air in and will give us a beautiful rise. So just bring this to the center and just pinch the dough. And because of this shape, we're gonna be able to trap a lot more air into our dough, which is what you wanna see. And here's our beautiful, perfectly smooth dough. To proof the dough, what I like to do is have a bowl here. I don't like using another bowl. The one we stirred everything in usually does the job. If needed, sometimes I add a little bit of oil in there. Place the ball of dough inside, pinch side down. You don't want to flip the dough. And then we want to cover this to prevent it from forming a crust. And you can additionally spritz it or oil the top for that same reason, but just cover it and let this proof for about an hour or so. You're looking for the dough to almost double in size, and you want to place this in a nice, warm, cozy spot. Just like the back, over here. So we have another dough here set up that's been proofing for about an hour that we're gonna shape. To shape this, we're gonna punch the dough down. I like to flour my hands just the tiniest bit and just push the dough down. Beautiful. To shape this, I find it much easier to flour your surface firsthand. Flour your hands a little bit. And just dump the dough onto the work surface. We're gonna continue punching it down. And now we're gonna shape our dough into a log. And to do this, we just wanna flatten the dough and just bring it in here. We're essentially doing the same thing. We're trying to create tension and trap the air inside. Just like that. Doesn't have to be perfect, doesn't have to be super even. The second proof is going to even all the seams out and give us a nice log. And if you really want to flavor your dough, I've seen a few of my readers do this with cinnamon sugar. They mix a little bit of cinnamon sugar with butter, and they just spread that mixture onto the dough once it's flattened and just roll that into a log, which is really delicious. I've tried it myself after they told me to, and a little dessert bread in the morning. We're gonna place this in a baking pan. I like to use a loaf pan for this. You can use a parchment paper, or if you're using a nonstick one, you can omit that. And as you can see, we've placed it seam side down. I want this seam to seal inside and not open, so you wanna keep the seam at the bottom of the pan. We're going to go into our second proof. It's gonna need about 20-30 minutes in a warm spot until it's slightly risen, and then it's ready to go in the oven. So after the dough second proof, we have a nice fluffy loaf. We can score it in the center and then place it in the oven for 40 to 45 minutes until it's nice and golden brown. And if the top browns a little bit too fast, you can always cover it with a sheet of aluminum foil to prevent that from happening. So our bread is out of the oven. It's beautifully risen. It has a nice golden crust. And I want to share a tip here. If you don't love a nice crunchy crust, one thing you can do here is brush a little bit of water on the surface of the bread while it's hot, then cover it, and the steam trapped underneath the cover is gonna soften the crust, and you're gonna have a really nice soft bread that's not really crusty. I'm a crust fan. I like a good crust on my bread, but I know a lot of people prefer like a nice soft bite, so it's a nice little tip. So we're gonna pull this out. Look at that golden bottom. And this is the hollow sound you're looking for. I could be here all day, just beautiful. And now we wanna let this cool to room temperature and then slice it. I will admit this, I do like to slice my bread a little bit warm so that the steam just comes out. You know, you're not supposed to, because allowing it to cool preserves the crumb, but it does feel good. I like to serve my bread a little bit warm with some salted butter, honey, and a little bit more flaky salt on top. It adds such a lovely crunch, and it's such a special bite. If you're not gonna eat this whole loaf in the next 2 or 3 days, which I know it's really hard to do, it freezes really, really well. All you have to do is slice the loaf of bread and place it in a zip seal bag and just put it in the freezer, and whenever you're ready to eat, grab a slice, toast it for a couple minutes, and you have a lovely cottage cheese slice of bread whenever you want. The crunchy crust, really, really special. The crumb is absolutely tender. The bread is nice and warm. It's a very special bite. You might be wondering, does this taste like cottage cheese at all? I would say no. It just tastes like a really lovely and rich dough. If you're not a big cottage cheese lover, I think you would still really enjoy this bread. You can find this and more of my recipes on nytcooking.com.